Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for the very best in college football coverage and analysis with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation. Of course, the audio platforms you can find us on at Google Play, Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. And we got Michael Gaither on the line from WBRZ talking some LSU football. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great, Mark. You know, it's an exciting summer. You know, football season's kind of creeping upon us. It's hot in Louisiana. Temperatures are turning up, and we're excited to get ready for football.
It appears as though I've taken you away from better times, some good times tonight. So I'm going to talk some LSU football with you. Then I'm going to let you get back to more fun festivities.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'll tell you what. We got a lot of things going on. LSU baseball is always in the run for a hunt for a championship in Omaha, and then LSU football, Saints. Everybody gets excited. So the summertime in Louisiana, it gets a little testy. People are, you know, on their edge. So we'll see if we can kind of break through this year. It was a rough year a year ago. So we'll see if we can get it done.
I remember the importance of LSU football, or LSU baseball in particular, when I was down there. No doubt about that. So you're going to have to set us straight on this LSU football program, because the expectations are always high, but the losses have been in the 4-5 range over the last several years. They lose a bowl game to Notre Dame, and they have a quarterback situation in which at least the people that I talk to and the viewers that comment to my channel, they are taking this Joe Burrow thing to the nth degree. They're counting up Heisman trophies and national championships. They are totally on board.
Mark, let me tell you, it's honestly the most bizarre thing that I think I've been around in the 3 years I've been covering, you know, college football. It's almost like you feel like it's the great Joe Burrow. It's like we just transported from Danny Etling, gets drafted by the New England Patriots, championship franchise, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and now we got Joe Burrows, the guy who's done nothing. What has he done at Ohio State? Nothing. He's been the backup the entire way, but I'll tell you what. LSU, they went out, they got a guy that they were really, really high on. They passed on Trey Edwards, who was a running back out of California. Obviously, when you lose Darius Geis, you lose a guy like Leonard Fournette, and you got an empty backfield. And LSU's their money's been running the football, you know, being able to run the ball inside the trenches. And you lose a couple guys. You got Nick Brossette, Clyde Edwards-Helaire back there, who really haven't done anything. You know, people thought, hey, we need to go ahead and, you know, bring in a running back, and they passed on the running back and ended up going with the transfer quarterback from Ohio State. So a lot right now is kind of wait and see what happens as we get into fall camp. But I can tell you right now, it looks like if I could tell you anything, there's going to be a quarterback or two transfer from LSU, just because you got Justin McMillan, who's he's a guy who just graduated, so he could be a grant transfer. He could be eligible anywhere in the country. And you got guys like Miles Brennan, who was this highly touted recruit out of Mississippi State. Mississippi broke records. And everybody thought, hey, this is the guy, you know, a year ago. People were wondering why he wasn't, you know, getting snaps before Danny Etling. And all of a sudden he gets a couple snaps here in the Troy game, here in a couple other games, and nothing ever really came to fruition. So kind of, you know, to be honest with you, now you're back to square one. And I think when you change offensive coordinators, when you get rid of Canada, you fire him, you bring in Steve Ensminger, who was the guy last year who was coaching the tight ends. Now you got a guy learning a brand new offense. It's like, hey, you know, we're kind of in a little bit of a pickle situation. So they went ahead and went out and grabbed the Joe Burrows kid. So I think a lot of us are kind of wondering what's going to happen. No one really knows, because Joe Burrows was kind of a guy that was flying under the radar under JT Barrett and a couple of other guys at Ohio State.
Yeah, so we've got Michael Gaither on the line from WBRZ there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And, of course, if you're in Baton Rouge, it's LSU all over the place. That's the flagship right there. So what strikes me as odd is that Miles Brennan appeared to be in the significant lead for the job before Burrow shows up. And now Burrow shows up, and it's suddenly gifted, at least by the fans, to be his job. We still expect a quarterback competition in August, correct?
Hey, absolutely, 100%. Let me tell you this. So we had, you know, Arden Key is, right?
Absolutely.
Be a first round pick. Anyways, Darius Geis, beloved kid in Baton Rouge tweeted out the other day, not even a week ago, that, hey, congratulations to Joe Burrow's welcome to the family. And guess what Arden Key tweeted? He tweeted, hey, it's a business. So let me just tell you right there, that goes to tell you, whatever Arden Key's telling you, that this job is not just being handed to Joe Burrows. Like, he's gonna have to go out there and earn it. You got 3 other guys out there gunning for this job. And I can tell you what, Miles Brennan's at. They just released an article not even a week ago talking about the only thing Joe Burrows has over Miles Brennan is 2 years and 15 pounds. So Miles Brennan, he's a guy that you cannot disregard. Can you see me? Something just happened.
Oh yeah, I got you. You're good.
Let me see.
We can see and hear
you. So it's gonna be really, really competitive down the stretch. But I'll tell you this: if you want my honest opinion, not that I'm a football coach or anything, you don't go out and get a guy like Joe Burrows if you don't expect him to be the starting quarterback. I mean, you passed up on a guy like Trey Edwards, who was a grad senior transfer from California to be your running back, because you really don't have any proven running back. Like, this is the first time in a long time. Like, LSU, for however many years, you've had guys that have been NFL running backs. You've had NFL cornerbacks like nonstop throughout the years. I mean, the list goes on and on. This is the first year where under Ed Ogeron, the defensive line and offensive line is stronger than your skill set positions. So it's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the thought process nationally, from a national perspective on this program, is that it's still to be respected. There are athletes running around all over the place, but man, after being near the elite of college football, right there, of course, going to the championship game against Alabama in 2011, this was arguably the best program in America, right there with Alabama. And now the losses come in waves of 3, 4, and 5 every year, and the talent in the recruiting rankings are still high each and every year. So we're expecting LSU to get back to where we expect them to be. But now the talent seems to have waned a little bit in the last couple of recruiting classes. So are LSU fans getting a little tired of this repeated cycle now that's gone on for 5 or 6 years?
Mark, I'll tell you what, people have said it every year. LSU, they continue to struggle to find a quarterback. Why can't LSU find a quarterback? That's been the question. And it keeps happening over and over and over again. And then we have to go out in there and we have to get grad transfers like Danny Etling, or transfer quarterbacks like Joe Burrow. Like, why does that keep happening? Why do we keep failing to get the guy? I mean, you look at the guy that just ended up at TCU. I think his name's Rogers. Like, I can't remember his first name, but they keep missing. They keep missing. So there's obviously a problem with LSU and being able to go out there and find the guy and get him into Louisiana State. That honestly, it comes down to the big issue. So you got to be able to go out there. You got to be able to recruit. You got to be able to find the quarterback and kind of get you to where you go. I mean, the fact that Zach Mettenberger was probably the best quarterback that's come out of there in the last decade is a problem. And you can't even say Matt Flynn, because, I mean, Matt Flynn has been nothing but a backup quarterback in the NFL. So,
well, Mettenberger had 2 guys on the outside that were pretty good too.
Yeah, you take consideration the Odell Beckham Jr.'s and the Jarvis Landry's, So
yeah, those 2 are pretty good. They're going to make the quarterback look pretty good. And Zach Mettenberger obviously has had his issues staying in the NFL ever since he lost those 2. We got Michael Gaither on the line from WBRZ talking up some LSU football. I'm monitoring the chat, dozens and dozens of comments coming in, but not necessarily anything, Michael, that you haven't seen before, anything. So if you've got a legitimate question or comment about LSU football, people just talking up Joe Burrow in particular, and just thinking that maybe the talent along the bayou is not quite what it's been in the past. So if you look at the rest of the team, what concerns you? You'd mentioned skill position players and they're not being a proven running back. I heard a stat recently that this is the first time since the 60s that a certain percentage of production lost at running back and not coming back, like 90% of the production plus not coming back at running back. What else concerns you?
I think cornerback. I mean, you lose guys like Dante Jackson, Kevin Tolliver, your 2 shutdown corners. I think that's a problem. You got a guy in Greedy Williams who we think can be that guy, can live up to the Dante Jackson and everything, but you got guys in the safety. I mean, we saw last year, you get blown out by 25 points at Mississippi State. That's a problem. You got your safeties getting beat on one-on-one coverage. So there's a lot of questions with the secondary this year. But I really do believe the defensive line and the linebacker core is going to be really good for LSU this season.
So Ed Ogeron strikes me as the guy that everybody loves in the locker room. I don't know necessarily if he's the CEO to lead this program. Maybe he leads Missouri, or he's good at that level of program. But did you think that he was the hire to make? And do you think he's at a point where, even though the wins and losses aren't adding up at this point, he's got this thing headed in the right direction?
I'll be honest with you. I think they missed on a couple guys, and I think it was kind of the safest choice down the stretch. They really wanted the Tom Herman, and Tom Herman kind of played them like a fiddle, and it ended up turning out he goes to Texas. Lane Kiffin goes to Florida Atlantic University. So you're kind of in a pickle situation where you got to go ahead and make a move, and it was kind of one of those situations where this was a guy who live and dies LSU. He grew up here. He grew up digging holes right outside the stadium in Lafayette, whatever the case may be. So it almost seemed like maybe he would be the guy to kind of motivate this team back to fruition and get them back to a team that we talked about nationally. But let me go ahead and tell you something real quick. I read a couple recent articles. And there's a magazine out right now, and I want to read this to you. It's on the state of LSU's program, and there's anonymous coaches from the SEC that go ahead and chime in on what they think about each coach in each division in the SEC. This is what they're saying about LSU. This is anonymous, by the way. We don't know who said this. This is on the state of the program. LSU doesn't have the talent or depth they used to have. I'm not sure what's happened to the recruiting. They've lost some really good players to out-of-state schools, and they've been hit hard by losing a lot of players in recent years early to the NFL draft. That's taken a toll. So, I mean, that's kind of a hard statement from an anonymous coach in the SEC. We don't know who it is.
It's a hard statement, and when you put it together with the schedule that this program is facing this year, so they play the best team in the other division, Georgia, maybe the best team in the country last year, Georgia, and they've got Florida, who should be better under Dan Mullen. And, of course, they have to deal with what I still think is top to bottom the best division in college football. And then, oh, yeah, we don't have time to work. So let's say Miles Brennan and Joe Burrow play well in August, but Ogeron's not thinking that either one has outplayed the other, and he would love to see them against, heavy artillery, the real thing. And it would be nice to warm up for a game or two before you hit the big matchup in week 2 or week 3. But they don't get that luxury this year. It's Miami right out of the gate and a top 10 defense.
Hey, I'll tell you what, I grew up in South Florida. I'm a Miami Hurricane to the day I die. This is just kind of a team that I've fell into the hands of, LSU. Miami, that is a scary football team. When you look at not having an experienced quarterback going against that defense that brings out the turnover chain, that thrives off of kind of energy and building them, that's a scary team. Now, let me go ahead and tell you this. So they had three questions that they asked SEC teams. This is on LSU's 2018 season. This is what they said. This is one of the LSU coaches. At LSU, they get 8 wins. Don't try to spin it like it's a good year. Not while the guy in Tuscaloosa is winning 12 or 13. Wow.
Ouch.
That hurts. But
yeah, that's the state of LSU football right now. It's Texas A&M. It's Mississippi State right now.
Absolutely.
It's not even Auburn. It's not Auburn.
Nope.
I know they won the game head-to-head last year, but it's not even Auburn at this point.
They just lost to UCF.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it, you got Jimbo Fisher, who was the guy that coached under Nick Saban at LSU, now has brought himself to Texas A&M, and then you got Dan Mullen, who's had nothing but success with quarterbacks over at Florida. You've got yourself a real problem, and you have to go to Florida again this year.
Yeah, we got Michael Gaither on the line talking up LSU football, WBRZ TV, where he covers a ton of sports right there, and he's got LSU baseball to deal with right now. He's got talking about the Saints training camp, LSU football as well. So the summers do not slow down for very long for you guys, Michael. So how's that Saints football team looking?
You know what? It's going to be interesting. I think the summer has kind of taken by surprise with the Mark Ingram suspension, top 4 games for PEDs this upcoming year. But you look at it, it's kind of like Alvin Kamara was 1A and Mark Ingram was 1B. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of shake that situation out to see who kind of fills the replacement of Mark Ingram for the first month of the season. But realistically, at the end of the day, I mean, you look at the Saints, what they were able to do a year ago, NFC Championship, lose to the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, they're going to be right back in the thick of things this year. Drew Brees, 39 years old. This guy's entering his 15th year in the NFL. I mean, this guy's the real deal. You got Michael Thomas, year 3 out of Ohio State. You got free agent Cameron Meredith, who they signed as a restricted free agent for the Chicago Bears, who was fresh off an ACL tear last year. He was a guy who was one of the best slot wide receivers in 2016. They've got him back this year. He's going to be a major factor in this offense who could play a huge role on third down. And then, like I said, once you get, you draft guys at, running back position. They drafted a local guy from Zachary High School in Baton Rouge, ended up going to Louisiana Tech. They drafted him in the 6th round named Boston Scott. Probably could be a guy that sees some carries early in the season with Mark Ingram out with the PED suspension, because they don't seem like they're kind of leaning towards signing a veteran running back. Obviously, the guy that was on the board was Adrian Peterson, who they signed a year ago. Doesn't look like they're interested in doing that. So they're kind of leaning towards, hey, let's see what we got. Let's go with that. Let's make the most out of Alvin Kamara and let's run with it.
So, Michael, you've only been around South Louisiana there for 3 years, but you know your football, you know your NFL landscape, your college football landscape, and obviously I know the local sports gig and how that works. You come to town, you got to learn the lay of the land and what people really care about. And so you talk to a lot of people, you read up, you do your history research. The Saints obviously have a very choppy, and that's to be kind, history. They got the Super Bowl win with Drew Brees. They went to another NFC Championship game a few years before that and lost to the Bears. So these are the good times for the New Orleans Saints. They had a couple rough years, and now it looks as though they've bounced back and finally found a defense. But it's been a rough go for this franchise history. LSU football, despite what we've seen in the last 15 years, it wasn't that successful in the 70s and 80s and most of the 90s. It's had a really good run here in the last 15 years, despite a couple down years here recently, 2 national championships in 03 and 07. So who do you think has more of the heart and more of the pulse of this region? What would be the popularity contest there right now between the Saints and LSU football?
Honestly, I got to go LSU. I think wherever you go in this state, because if you go west, you're going to start finding some Houston Texans fans. You're going to start finding some Dallas Cowboys fans. You go anywhere in the region in Louisiana, you're going to find LSU fans, and they're diehards. There's something different. I grew up in South Florida. I grew up with Miami Hurricanes fans. We grew up going to the Orange Bowl in Miami before they knocked that thing down to build a stadium for the Marlins. It's different. People care about the sport here in Louisiana. They thrive on LSU football, and I really truly believe LSU has built a defensive mindset where they send guys to the NFL. You look at guys like Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, you look at one of the guys who was almost the NFL Rookie of the Year a year ago, Tre'Davious White for the Buffalo Bills, Jamal Adams with the New York Jets. I mean, they constantly, year in and year out, they pump guys out of the defensive unit. Deion Jones with the Atlanta Falcons, Duke Riley. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, they've really got it figured out, and they do a really nice job of kind of setting these guys up for the future. So I would definitely go with LSU.
Enjoying the LSU football conversation with Michael Gaither. You can join him at WBRZ TV right there in Baton Rouge. So that's where the heartbeat is, right, for LSU football. Michael, we're going to let you go. I'm going to somewhat ignore some of the chat comments because people want a prediction. So I'm not going to hold you to this.
Okay, go ahead.
this
Good.
Miami LSU game is 3+ months away. But how do you feel about the matchup right now?
I mean, if you're an LSU fan, you can't feel good. You cannot feel good. I mean, I'm not going to be. I'm a guy that covers LSU on a day-to-day basis. I do not feel good about the season. I think it's a 6 or 7 win season. You don't even know who your quarterback is. I mean, that's a problem. That's a problem going into the season. You don't even know who your starting running back is. You don't know whether it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Nick Brosette, who was the guy who fumbled on the first snap versus Troy last year, ended up turning into a whirlwind of events. You've got Jerry Sullivan, who's been an NFL guru for a long time with wide receivers. You don't even know who your 4 starting wide receivers are. So it's kind of like a big question mark. LSU, for a program that should be a top 25 program every year, let me tell you this. When Les Miles had that job, that was a top 5 job however many years ago. Now it's not even a top 25 job in the country. That's how much LSU has taken a step back. You got guys like I don't want to disregard, Ed Ogeron and what he's been able to do, but I'm just saying it's not a top 25 job in the country anymore. It used to be a top 5, top 10 job. Now it's not even a top 25 job.
Michael, you don't think the LSU job is a top 25 job?
I don't.
Okay. That I would have to disagree with, but I respectfully listen to you, and you're right there. You're covering the team. I'm not. I just think the program's still in a good place in regards to maybe a top 10 to 15 job.
This last year, we weren't even allowed to video practice for the first month of fall camp. That's because of all the install that was going on defense. They didn't want anybody in there to see it. And I'll tell you what, Alabama, Nick Saban will let you go into practice and film it. I'm a videographer, I'm the weekend sports anchor at WBRZ. So usually during the week I go into practice, I video whatever's going on. They give you, 8, 9, 10 minutes. They would not let you video the first month of the fall practices last year. That's how bad they were.
Okay, that's the straight shot from Michael Gaither, WBRZ TV. They're in Baton Rouge talking some LSU football. We got a ton of traffic here on the chat line, but we're going to turn it over to Alabama here with Stephen M. Smith coming up next, and we're going to let Michael enjoy his night. So, Michael, it's the first time here on Mark Rogers TV. You are welcome back. Appreciate the conversation.
Mark, let me tell you, if I can give you a prediction, I think 7-5. They're actually predicted as the hardest schedule in all of college football this year. So I think 7-5 would be a realistic output for this team.
Okay, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Take care.